The small shuttle shook hard as it fell through the purple sky of Prime. Inside, Lieutenant Danny Cole held tight to his seat and watched the warning lights flash red all around him. The engines were dead. The navigation system was broken. He was going to crash on a planet where humans were not welcome. Danny was 32 years old, a pilot and translator for the Earth Diplomatic Corps. He had been on his way to a peace meeting on a nearby moon when something hit his shuttle. Maybe it was space debris. Maybe it was a weapon. He did not know. All he knew was that the ground was coming up fast. He pulled hard on the emergency controls. The shuttle's nose lifted just a little. It was not enough to fly, but it was enough to change the angle of the crash. Instead of hitting nose first, the shuttle slid across the surface of an alien forest, tearing through trees that looked like giant crystals. The sound was terrible. Glass and metal screamed together as the shuttle broke apart around him. Then everything went black. When Danny opened his eyes, he saw strange faces looking down at him. They were not human faces. They were tall, insect-like beings with hard shells that shined like polished stone. They had 4 arms and 2 legs, and their eyes were large and dark, showing no emotion that a human could read. They had been traveling among the stars for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. They did not trust the younger races, especially humans. Danny tried to move, but pain shot through his body. His left leg was broken. His ribs felt cracked. Blood ran down the side of his face from a cut on his head. He was in no condition to fight or run. The soldiers spoke to each other in their clicking language. Danny understood some of it. He had studied their tongue for years. They were calling him a spy. They were talking about what to do with him. One of them grabbed his arm and pulled him up. Danny screamed in pain, but the soldier did not care. They dragged him across the crystal forest floor, through a city of tall spires and glowing lights, and into a great palace that seemed to be carved from a single massive gemstone. They brought him before a council of elders. At the center of the council sat the queen. Queen was the largest Danny had ever seen. Her shell was deep purple, almost black, and it was covered in golden patterns that marked her royal blood. Her voice was deep and cold when she spoke. "A human," she said, looking at Danny like he was an insect she had found in her food. "On my world, in my space, without permission." Danny forced himself to stand straight, even though every part of his body hurt. "My shuttle malfunctioned," he said in the language. His pronunciation was not perfect, but it was good enough. "I did not choose to come here. I was on my way to the moon for a diplomatic meeting." The council members clicked and whispered among themselves. They were surprised that a human could speak their language. The queen was not impressed. "You could be a spy. You could be the first wave of an invasion. Humans are known for their tricks." "I am alone," Danny said. "I am injured. I have no weapons. What kind of invasion is that?" The queen's dark eyes studied him for a long moment. Then she made her decision. "He will be held in the detention wing. We will contact the human government. Until we know the truth, he stays as our prisoner." The soldiers dragged Danny away. They took him down into the lower levels of the palace, where the walls were cold and the light was dim. They threw him into a small cell with a hard floor and no bed. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. Danny lay on the floor and tried to breathe through the pain. His leg was very bad. He needed medical help, but he did not think it would come. They did not care if he lived or died. Hours passed, maybe days. Danny could not tell. He drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he dreamed of Earth, of green fields and blue skies and the smell of rain. Sometimes he dreamed of nothing at all. It was during one of these dark hours that he heard the crying. It was a small sound, soft and scared. It came from somewhere outside his cell. Danny forced his eyes open and looked toward the door. Through the small window he could see a figure in the dim hallway. It was a child, very young, still in the early stages of development. Her shell was soft and pale blue, not yet hardened into the armor of an adult. She was huddled against the wall, trembling. Danny did not know why she was there. Maybe she had wandered away from her caretakers. Maybe she was lost, but he could hear the fear in her cries, and something in his heart responded to it. He pulled himself across the floor until he was close to the door. Every movement sent waves of pain through his body, but he did not stop. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, little one, it is okay." The child looked up. Her large eyes were wet with tears. She did not run away. Danny did not know what else to do, so he did the only thing he could think of. He started to sing. It was an old song, a lullaby his mother used to sing to him when he was small and afraid of the dark. The words were simple, and the melody was gentle. He sang about stars and dreams and a love that would never fade. The child stopped crying. She moved closer to the door, listening. Her trembling slowed. Her breathing became calm. Danny sang until his voice grew tired. By then, the child had fallen asleep, curled up against the wall just outside his cell. He did not know who she was. He did not know that she was Princess, the youngest daughter of Queen. He did not know that this moment would change both of their lives forever. All he knew was that a scared child had needed comfort, and he had given it. That was enough. When the guards found the next morning, they were shocked and angry. They took her away and shouted at Danny through the door, but looked back at him as they carried her off, and in her eyes, Danny saw something that surprised him. It was gratitude. And it was the beginning of everything. The council took 3 weeks to decide what to do with Danny Cole. During that time, a doctor came to set his broken leg and treat his wounds. The doctor did not speak to him or look at his face. Danny was just a problem to be fixed, not a person to be helped. Earth had been contacted. The human government confirmed that Danny was who he said he was, a diplomat on a peaceful mission. They asked for his return. They refused. "He has seen too much," Queen declared. "He has been inside our palace. He knows the layout of our capital. We cannot simply release him." So they reached a compromise. Danny would remain on Prime as a diplomatic hostage. He would not be harmed, but he would not be free. He would stay in the palace under guard, a living guarantee that Earth would not cause trouble in space. Danny was given a small room in the lower levels of the palace. It was better than the cell, but not by much. There was a bed, a table, and a window that looked out at a courtyard filled with crystal flowers. He was allowed to walk in certain areas during certain hours, always with guards watching him. He expected to be alone. He expected to spend his days in silence, waiting for a freedom that might never come. He did not expect. The first time she appeared, Danny thought he was imagining things. He was sitting in the courtyard, watching the twin suns set behind the palace towers, when he heard a small clicking sound behind him. He turned and saw her standing there. Princess, the little one he had sung to in the dark. She was watching him with those big, curious eyes. "You are the human," she said. Her voice was high and soft like wind chimes. "Yes," Danny said carefully. He did not know if he was allowed to talk to her. He did not want to make his situation worse. "And you are the princess." Moved closer. The guards at the edge of the courtyard noticed but did not stop her. She was royalty. They could not tell her what to do. "You sang to me," she said. "When I was scared, why?" Danny thought about the question. "Because you were crying, and I did not want you to be sad." Tilted her head. They did not understand this kind of thinking. They cared for their children, but in a practical way. Food, shelter, education. Comfort for no reason, kindness without purpose, these were strange concepts to them. "Will you sing again?" she asked. Danny looked at the guards. They were watching, but they did not seem angry. Maybe they thought it was harmless. Maybe they did not care. So Danny sang. A different song this time, a happy one about a farmer and his animals, listened with wonder in her eyes. After that, she came back every day. At first, she just wanted to hear songs, But soon she started asking questions. What was Earth like? What were oceans? Why did the sky on his planet change color? What was rain? What was snow? Danny answered every question as best he could. He described the blue of the sea and the white of the clouds. He told her about mountains that touched the sky and rivers that cut through valleys. He told her about seasons, about how the world changed from warm to cold and back again. Was fascinated. Prime had no seasons. The temperature was always the same. The crystal forests never changed. The idea of a world that transformed itself every few months was like magic to her. But the thing that amazed her most was when Danny started telling her stories. "What is a story?" she asked one day. Danny was surprised by the question. "A story it is like a history, but it did not really happen. Someone imagined it." His eyes went wide. "You imagine things that did not happen. Why?" "For fun," Danny said. "To teach lessons, to dream about what could be." They did not have fiction. They recorded facts. They documented events. They studied history. But they did not make up tales about heroes and villains, about love and adventure, about impossible things. Danny told about brave knights who fought dragons to save kingdoms. He told her about a wooden puppet who wanted to become a real boy. He told her about a girl named who was carried away by a storm to a magical land and had to find her way home. Drank in every word like water in a desert. "Tell me another one," she would say, and Danny always did. The weeks became months. The guards stopped watching Danny so closely. He was no threat. He was just a strange human who sat in the courtyard and talked to the princess. The royal tutors noticed that was changing. She was more curious than before. She asked questions that no child had ever asked. She drew pictures of things that did not exist. She talked about what she wanted to be when she grew up, not what she was expected to be. This worried them. "She is becoming strange," they reported to the queen. "The human is filling her head with nonsense." Queen considered banning Danny from seeing her daughter, but when she tried, refused to eat. She refused to sleep. She sat in her room and cried until her voice was gone. The queen was powerful, but she was also a mother. She could not bear to see her child suffer. So she allowed the visits to continue, with one condition. A tutor would always be present to make sure Danny did not teach anything dangerous. The tutor lasted 2 weeks before asking to be reassigned. He could not handle endless questions about made-up worlds and impossible creatures. No one else wanted the job. Danny and were left alone again. "Danny," she said one day, using his name for the first time, "why do humans imagine things?" He thought about it for a long moment. Because imagining helps us believe that things can be better. When life is hard, we tell stories about hope. When we are scared, we tell stories about courage. When we feel alone, we tell stories about love. Was quiet, then she asked, "Can I imagine things too?" Danny smiled. "Anyone can imagine things, you just have to let yourself dream." That night told her first story. It was simple and short, about a crystal flower that wanted to see the stars. But it was hers. She had made it up all by herself. She ran to find Danny and told it to him word by word. When she finished, her eyes were bright with joy. "Did I do it right?" she asked. Danny felt something warm in his chest. "You did it perfectly." He did not know it then, but something had changed in that day. Something had awakened inside her, something that would grow stronger with every story she heard and every dream she dared to have. And it had all started with a song in the dark. 1 year passed on Prime. Danny Cole was still a prisoner, but his prison had become strangely comfortable. He had his small room, his walks in the courtyard, and most importantly, the princess was growing. Her shell was hardening, turning from soft blue to a deeper shade of purple. She was taller now, stronger, and her mind was sharper than ever. The royal tutors said she was the student they had ever taught, but they also said she was the strangest. did not think like other children. She asked why instead of accepting how things were. She imagined futures instead of only studying the past. She felt things deeply, emotions that most kept buried under their hard shells. The other children did not understand her. They called her weird. They stayed away from her during lessons, pretended it did not hurt, but Danny could see the pain in her eyes. "They do not like me," she said one evening, sitting beside him in the courtyard. "They think something is wrong with me." Danny shook his head. "Nothing is wrong with you. You are just different, and different is not bad. Different is special." "But I do not want to be special," said her voice small. "I just want to have friends." Danny did not know what to say. He could not fix this problem with a story or a song. All he could do was be there for her, the way he had been there from the beginning. "You have me," he said. "I am your friend." Looked up at him. Something changed in her eyes, something deep and powerful. She did not say anything. She just moved closer and leaned against his side. Danny did not know what had just happened. He did not understand biology. He did not know about imprinting. Among the children formed bonds with their caregivers through a process called the deep connection. It was part chemical, part emotional, and completely irreversible. When a child imprinted on someone, that person became part of their soul. They would be connected forever, through joy and pain, through life and death. Normally, children imprinted on their parents during the first years of life. It was natural and expected. The idea of a child imprinting on an outsider, on an alien, had never been considered. No one thought it was possible. But it had been different from the start. She had never fully connected with her mother, the queen, was too busy with matters of state, too cold and distant. His biological father, the queen's consort, was kind but weak, always in the shadow of his powerful wife. Neither of them had been there when needed someone most. Danny had. The first sign came a month later, when the queen's consort was killed in a border skirmish with raiders. The news spread through the palace like fire. Everyone mourned. The queen locked herself in her chambers for 3 days. Did not go to her mother. She ran to Danny. She burst into his room in the middle of the night, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Danny held her while she sobbed, not knowing what else to do. He sang to her softly, the same lullaby he had sung on that first night. "He is gone," wept. "He is gone, and I never told him I loved him." "He knew," Danny said gently. "Parents always know." Cried until she had no tears left. Then she fell asleep in Danny's arms, exhausted and broken. The guards found them like that in the morning. They did not know what to make of it. The second sign came 6 months later, when went through her first molting. Molting was one of the most important moments in his life. It was when they shed their old shell and grew a new one, bigger and stronger. But during the process, they were completely vulnerable. Their new shell was soft and sensitive. Every touch was painful. Every sound was too loud. They needed to be protected and cared for until the new shell hardened. Royal nurses were assigned to watch over during her molt. They prepared a special room for her, dark and quiet and safe. Everything was ready. But when the molting began and the pain started, did not call for the nurses. She did not call for her mother. She called for Danny. "I want Danny," she cried, her voice breaking. "Please, I need Danny, please." The nurses did not know what to do. They sent for the queen, came to her daughter's room and stood outside the door, listening to beg for the human. "This is not right," one of the advisors whispered. "This is not normal." The queen's face was unreadable, but after a long moment she gave the order. "Bring him." Danny was brought to his room. He did not understand why he had been called or what was happening, but when he saw lying there, trembling and afraid, none of that mattered. He sat beside her and took her hand gently. "I am here," he said. "I am not going anywhere." His grip tightened on his fingers. "Promise." "Promise." He stayed with her for 3 days while her new shell formed. He sang to her when the pain was bad. He told her stories when she could not sleep. He held her hand through the darkest hours and reminded her that she was brave, that she was strong, that she could get through this. When the molting was complete and emerged with her beautiful new purple shell, the first thing she did was hug Danny. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for being here." Danny smiled and hugged her back. "Always." The nurses watched in silence. The advisors watched in silence. The Queen watched in silence. They all knew what had happened, even if Danny did not. Had imprinted on the human. The deep connection had formed, not with her mother, not with any, but with an alien prisoner who had shown her kindness when no one else would. In the weeks that followed, the signs became impossible to ignore. Spoke of Danny constantly. His mannerisms, his ways of speaking. When she was asked about her family in lessons, she included him without thinking. And then came the word. In the language, there was a special term reserved for the one who had shaped a child's soul through the deep connection. It was not the same as the word for biological parent. It was something more, something sacred. The word was Ev. It meant soul father. Began using it without even realizing what she was doing. She would talk to other children about her Ev Danny. She would tell the tutors that Ev taught her something new. She said it as naturally as breathing. When the Queen finally heard her daughter use that word, something inside her went very cold. She called her advisors together. She called the doctors. She called the priests. "What has happened to my daughter?" she demanded. "How is this possible?" The answers were all the same. The deep connection had formed. It could not be broken. To try would destroy his mind. The human was now, in the most sacred sense of tradition, part of the royal family. And Queen had no idea what to do about it. The summons came at dawn. Danny was sleeping when the guards broke down his door. They did not explain. They did not answer his questions. They simply grabbed him by the arms and dragged him through the palace corridors, past servants who turned away and advisors who whispered behind their hands. He was brought to the throne room. Danny had only seen this place once before, on the day he crashed on Prime. It looked different now. The morning light streamed through windows of colored crystal, painting the floor in shades of red and gold. The walls were lined with soldiers in ceremonial armor, their weapons drawn and ready. The council of elders sat in their high seats, their faces grim. And at the center of it all sat Queen. She was dressed in her full royal regalia, a cloak of woven metal and a crown of black gemstones. Her eyes burned with a cold fury that made Danny's blood run cold. He had seen her angry before. He had never seen her like this. The guards threw him to the floor at the base of the throne. Danny caught himself with his hands and slowly pushed himself to his knees. "Your Majesty," he said, keeping his voice calm, "why have I been brought here?" The Queen rose from her throne. She was massive, towering over everyone in the room. When she spoke, her voice echoed off the crystal walls like thunder. "Why does my daughter call you father, human?" The words hit Danny like a physical blow. He had not known. He had heard use strange words he did not fully understand, but he had never realized what they meant. He had never imagined that his bond with her had become something so deep. "I did not know," he said honestly. "I did not know that she—" "Silence!" The Queen stepped down from her throne, each footstep shaking the floor. "You came to my world uninvited. You wormed your way into my palace. You poisoned my daughter's mind with your alien ideas, and now you have stolen her soul." "I stole nothing," Danny said, finding his courage. He rose to his feet, ignoring the guards who moved toward him. "I did not ask for any of this. I was your prisoner. I was alone and hurt and far from home, and your daughter was the only one who showed me kindness. She was a child. She did not know what she was doing." "Neither did I." Danny met the Queen's eyes without flinching. "I did not know about your imprinting. I did not know about the deep connection. All I knew was that a little girl was scared and lonely and I could help her." The queen's claws flexed at her sides. You expect me to believe that? You expect me to believe that a human, one of the most cunning and deceptive species in the galaxy, did not plan this? What would I gain? Danny asked. I am still your prisoner. I have no power here. I cannot leave. I cannot contact my people. If this was some kind of plan, it was a very bad one. The council members shifted in their seats. Some of them were nodding slightly. The human's words made sense. But the queen was not convinced. You have turned my daughter against me. She trusts you more than she trusts her own mother. Danny was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made the entire room go still. Maybe that is because I was there when you were not. The queen's eyes blazed. How dare you? You asked me a question, Danny said, his voice steady. You asked why calls me father. I am telling you the truth. I was there for her. When she was scared in the dark, I sang to her. When she was curious about the universe, I answered her questions. When she was lonely because the other children rejected her, I was her friend. When she went through her first molting and was terrified and in pain, I held her hand for 3 days. He took a step forward and the guards raised their weapons. Danny ignored them. I did not ask for this bond. Neither did. It happened because she needed someone and I was there. I will not apologize for that. I will not apologize for loving a child who needed to be loved. The queen stared at him. Her fury was still there, burning behind her eyes, but something else was there too. Something that might have been doubt. Love, she repeated, as if the word was foreign to her. Humans speak of love so easily. Because it matters to us, Danny said. Love is not just a word. It is action. It is being there for someone when they need you. It is putting their happiness before your own. It is choosing every day to care for them no matter what. He looked up at the towering queen and spoke from his heart. I love, not because of any plan or scheme, not because I want something from her. I love her because she is kind and curious and brave. I love her because she dreams of things that no one else can imagine. I love her because she trusted me when she had no reason to. His voice softened. I know I am not her real father. I know I can never replace what she lost, but I will always be there for her for as long as she wants me. That is what love means. The throne room was completely silent. The council members looked at each other. The soldiers stood frozen with their weapons still raised. Everyone was waiting to see what the queen would do. Stood motionless for a long time. The fury in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by something more complex, something that Danny could not read. Finally she spoke. The deep connection is sacred, she said slowly. It is the foundation of our society. To break it is to destroy the child's mind and soul. This is not opinion. This is biological fact. She looked at Danny with new eyes. My daughter has chosen you as her Ev. I do not understand it. I do not like it. But I cannot change it without harming her. The queen returned to her throne and sat down heavily. Leave us, she commanded the guards and council. All of you. I wish to speak with the human alone. The room emptied quickly. Soon it was just Danny and the queen, facing each other in the vast silent chamber. Sit, she said, gesturing to a cushion near the base of the throne. Danny sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the queen let out a sound that might have been a sigh. I have been a poor mother, she admitted quietly. The duties of the crown have always come first. I told myself that would understand when she was older. I told myself that there would be time later to be close to her. She looked at Danny with ancient, tired eyes. But children do not wait for later. They need you now, and I was not there. It is not too late, Danny said gently. Still loves you. She just needs to know that you love her too. I do not know how, the queen confessed. I do not know how to be what she needs. I was raised to rule, not to nurture. My own mother was the same. Danny thought about this. Then learn, he said. Ask her questions. Listen to her stories. Spend time with her without any purpose except to be together. It will feel strange at first, but it will get easier." The queen was quiet for a long time. "You truly care for her," she said at last. "It was not a question." "More than anything." Nodded slowly. "Then perhaps there is a way forward, one that does not involve your execution." Danny's heart skipped a beat. "I would prefer that option, Your Majesty." For the first time since he had met her, the queen almost smiled. "We have much to discuss, human. This will not be simple, but for my daughter's sake I am willing to try." Danny bowed his head. "For sake, so am I." And in that moment something changed between them. They were not friends, they were not allies, but they were both people who loved the same child. It was a start. The announcement shocked the galaxy. Danny Cole, former prisoner of Prime, was granted the status of royal guardian. He would share in the upbringing of Princess alongside Queen herself. He would have freedom of movement within the palace and the capital city. He would be treated as a member of the royal household. It was unprecedented. It was scandalous. It was the beginning of something new. The first months were not easy. Many nobles protested. They said it was wrong to give such honor to an alien, to a human of all species. They whispered that the queen had gone mad, that she was betraying thousands of years of tradition. Ignored them. She had made her choice and she would not go back on it. Danny worked hard to prove that the queen's trust was not misplaced. He learned more of the language until he could speak it without accent. He studied their history and their customs. He showed respect for their ways, even when he did not fully understand them. But he also brought something new. With the queen's permission, Danny began to share human ideas with the scholars. He told them about democracy and individual rights. He explained the concept of fiction and showed them how stories could teach lessons without pretending to be fact. He introduced them to music that was meant to stir emotions, not just mark ceremonies. Some scholars were offended. They called his ideas primitive and strange, but others were fascinated. They had never thought about things this way. They wanted to learn more. Slowly, carefully, human ideas began to spread through society. But the biggest change was in. The princess grew into a remarkable young woman. Her shell hardened into a deep royal purple, marked with the golden patterns of her bloodline. She was tall and strong and beautiful by any species standards. But it was her mind that truly set her apart. Could think in ways that no had ever thought before. She could imagine possibilities. She could dream of futures that did not yet exist. She could see problems from angles that others could not even conceive. And she could tell stories. The first story wrote was published when she was 16 years old. It was a tale about a young who traveled to a distant planet and discovered that the aliens there were not monsters, just different. The message was simple, but for a society that had always feared the unknown, it was revolutionary. The story was translated into human languages and spread across Earth. People who had never thought about them suddenly wanted to learn more about them. For the first time, the two species began to see each other as something other than threats. Wrote more stories. Each one built bridges where there had been walls. Each one planted seeds of understanding in minds that had been closed. When she turned 20, was appointed as the first ambassador to Earth. It was a position created just for her. No one else had the skills to do it. No one else could understand both species the way she could. No one else had grown up with a foot in both worlds. The day she left for Earth, Danny stood with her at the spaceport. He was older now, his hair turning gray at the temples, but his eyes were still bright with the same kindness that had drawn to him all those years ago. "Are you scared?" he asked. Smiled. It was a human expression, one she had learned from him. "A little, but you taught me that being scared is okay. What matters is what you do next." Danny felt his eyes grow wet. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships come and go. "I will miss you," said softly. "I wish you could come with me." Danny shook his head. This is your journey, not mine. You have grown beyond what I could ever teach you. Now it is time for you to teach the universe. Threw her arms around him in a hug, another human gesture she had adopted. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for everything. Thank you for singing to me when I was scared. Thank you for telling me stories. Thank you for teaching me how to dream. Danny hugged her back tightly. Thank you for letting me be your father. When they finally let go, both of them were crying. But they were happy tears, the kind that come when the heart is too full of love to hold it all inside. Boarded her ship and traveled to Earth. She met with human leaders and spoke to crowds of thousands. She told them about their history and their culture and their fears. She told them stories that made them laugh and cry and think. And slowly, the relationship between humans began to change. Peace treaties were signed. Trade routes were opened. Students began to travel between worlds, learning about each other's societies. The old suspicions did not disappear overnight, but they began to fade. 20 years later, stood before a gathering of both species at the first Joint Human Congress. She was no longer a young princess. She was a leader, a diplomat, a bridge between worlds. A reporter asked her a question that she had been asked many times before. Ambassador, many people say you are unique among your kind. What do you think made you different from others? Was quiet for a moment, looking out at the crowd. Humans and sat side by side, something that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. Then she smiled. When I was a child, I met a human who was lost and hurt and far from home. He had every reason to be angry and bitter. Instead, he was kind. When I was scared, he sang to me. When I was curious, he answered my questions. When I needed someone to believe in me, he was there. Her voice softened with memory. He taught me that the universe is not just what we see. It is also what we imagine. He taught me that strangers are just friends we have not met yet. He taught me that the impossible is just a story that has not been told yet. She paused. He taught me how to dream, and that made all the difference. Far away on Prime, Danny Cole watched the broadcast on a screen in his small room. He was old now, his body weak, but his spirit was still strong. He watched his daughter speak to the galaxy, and he felt a pride so deep it made his heart ache. Queen sat beside him, watching the same screen. They had become something like friends over the years, united by their love for even when they disagreed about everything else. She is extraordinary, the Queen said quietly. Yes, Danny agreed, she is. And she would not be who she is without you. Danny shook his head. She would not be who she is without you either, without this world, without her heritage, without the strength you gave her. We both helped shape her. The Queen considered this. Perhaps that is the lesson. Perhaps the best things happen when different worlds work together instead of apart. Danny smiled. That sounds like something would say. I learned it from her. The Queen almost smiled back. She taught us both in the end. On the screen finished her speech. The crowd erupted in applause, humans and cheering together. Danny watched and remembered a scared little girl crying in the dark, and a song that had changed everything. He had never planned to become a father. He had never planned to change the galaxy. He had just been kind when kindness was needed. But sometimes that is enough. Sometimes that is everything.